All right, so we are joined, our first computer science engineering speaker of 2023 from Atlanta, Georgia. 2018 Velma Jackson graduate Samuel Smith, who's now a transportation engineer and also graduate of Jackson State University. And we got a lot to talk about. We're looking forward to hearing all about it. But we got a room full here at Velma Jackson, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools at Shirley Simmons Middle School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, Old Town Middle School, and all my friends over at Madison Middle School as well. So thank you so much for taking some time for us today. We are wanting to get more and more into what engineers do, the skills involved, and how it is such a great career for our young people to look into, because it's got to be one of the fastest growing careers in the world. So I'll let you take it over here. I see you got your, we see your screen, and we're looking forward to hearing what you got to say here.
All righty. Hi, my name is Samuel Smith. I'm a 2018 graduate of Velma Jackson University. I attended Jackson State University. I'm a spring 2022 graduate. I majored in civil engineer with a concentration in general engineering. My role now here at HNTB, I'm a transportation engineer 1 in the Atlanta office. So what I do, well, what is civil engineers? Most people, they assume that civil engineers, we're always working on roads or, it's just buildings, infrastructure mainly, but that's not always the case. Civil engineering really is just an umbrella term that we use. You have different areas for it. One of the things, when you go to school, something that they teach you is that you have different paths of engineering. You have construction, transportation, hydraulics and hydrology, which is just water for the most part, geotech, which is dealing with like foundation, and then you have environmental. And so civil engineering is really diverse. So here's just a few things that I worked on like during my career so far. This right here was one of the first projects that I ever worked on. It was in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan this past summer for my internship. This is one of the first in the country, actually. It was a bridge that we worked on. It was the Second Avenue Bridge it connected between a school called Wayne State, and I can't remember what the bypass road was, but here was just a video like us moving the bridge. I don't know if we were playing that. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, so basically, the bridge itself, when we first placed the bridge, there was a lot of problems, being that number one, it was too heavy, and we didn't account for a couple of things. So we had to use these rollers here to kind of place it over the bridge, to place it over the road. Yeah, it's really. Here are just a few more photos of the bridge itself. What made this bridge so unique was that it's a skewed tie arch bridge, meaning that the bridge sits at an angle, so it's not straight, like the road alignment is not straight. Wow. So, and that was kind of one of the most difficult challenges and it also was another thing that also made it unique was the fact that it was a tie arch bridge, which means that it was shaped in arch, and we use these right here, these ties to connect the bridge to help stabilize it. So my career path was different from some people. I went to a 4-year university, but what most people don't tell you, there's multiple ways into civil engineering overall. Here is just a list of a couple of internships that, number one, that I've done, and number two, a couple of organizations that you can get involved with in college early to kind of add to your resume. So TDRP was the program that I did in Michigan, the Department of Transportation. They paid for my housing, my transportation while I was there, and I had a meal stipend along with building. I had a mentor also. So it's a really good program. I really enjoyed that program because, number one, it gave me a lot of exposures to the entire field of engineering, and it also gave me like a chance. If it wasn't for this program, I actually wouldn't be where I'm at now, because I built my connections through that program, and I made a presentation to where the head of the entire like the entire department, Michigan Department of Transportation himself offered me a job off of himself, like directly once I finished the program. So that was really cool.
And then also, you know, even if somebody doesn't want to go into the engineering field, the internships are so important, especially in any tech related job, because a company would rather have somebody have that experience, already have seen what the field is like. So when they hire them, they know exactly what they're getting into. And like you said, even though the academic side is extremely important, the networking and the internship side, I would say, is just as important today when it comes to finding a career in any field.
Yes, that was one thing, one of my mentors and actually the head of the program that I was really close with, Mr. James Jackson. One thing he always told us was that education gets you to the door, but networking gets you through the door. And that spoke a lot of volume for me, because if it wasn't for the fact that I networked while I was there, my education would, I mean, yes, you need your education to get into the field, but the more people that you know, the more opportunities that you have for yourself. But like I was saying, with the 2-year route, with the going back to the college, I don't know what happened. I think the PowerPoint skipped a couple things.
Oh, you're
but
fine.
So what I was mentioning, there's a 2-year route, and then you have the university route. So with the 2-year route, you can go to any JUCO. Most JUCOs, they offer you basically, it's called a civil engineer tech program. And basically you're taking pretty much the same classes that you would take at a 4-year university, where you're taking like physics 1, Cal 1, Cal 2, and your general civil engineering classes like engineering mechanics 1, 2, and 3. But the good thing is you don't have to stay in civil when you take those classes. You can also switch over to any other form of engineering, because most of the base classes are pretty similar for the other field, which is also with civil, which kind of correlates with civil too, because civil is kind of a combination of all the engineers in a sense, if you think about it, because I have to learn how to code, I have to learn mechanical engineering also, and I also have to learn along with what computer engineering, electrical engineering. So it's really like, it's like I said, you have civil, but it's really kind of a combination of all of them. So you, like I said, with the 2-year route, if you take the 2-year route, it's kind of a good, I wish I would have did that route instead, because if I didn't really enjoy civil as much as I do, if had I would not known, I could have, if I would have took that route and went into a 4-year university, I would probably have changed my major a little bit earlier.
Wow.
And yeah, because civil is really difficult. I'm not going to hold you on that one, because in most civil programs, what they don't tell you, they are 5 to 6 years. And me and most of the people that I went in with my class, we graduated under 4 for the most part. So most programs, they tend to last like 5 to 6 years and that's at a minimum. One thing I kind of promote with those programs that are like, if you're there for 5, 6 years, take your fundamentals of engineering, your senior year. Reason I say that is because with the fundamentals of engineering, you become an engineer in training. And most people that take you, number one, it provides you more opportunity and it provides you more money, but it also makes you stand out for other people too. And it makes opportunity, like job opportunities, a lot more easier. And here's just a couple, do's and don'ts in college.
Oh man, I'm loving this.
Yeah, be involved. Like the whole point of college, what I figured out is be social. That's the whole point. Be involved, do stuff. It's okay to be shy your first year or in everything, because you don't really know nobody. But at the same time, in order for you to grow, you have to put yourself out there. Like you have to talk to people. Diversify your resume. Like that ties back into being involved. Be involved in organizations, work with people in the community. Another thing that kind of really helped especially for me to help me stand out a lot, I was involved in a lot of programs that kind of involved the community. So for me, example, like there was a program at Jackson State called PACE, where I was tutoring at, I think, Blackburn Middle School.
Yep.
And even though I was tutoring the kids, sometimes I would like stay after school or do stuff with them, you know, because I kind of bonded with the kids. And some of the teachers really took notice of that. And when it was one example where it was one time where I needed kind of, I think, a recommendation. And one of the teachers, like, they wrote it for me. And it helped me. I ended up getting one of the internships that I needed to graduate, actually. Another thing I kind of really want to promote in college, take a financial literacy course. That way you can set yourself up for when you graduate. Because it's important to save money while you're in school. It's kind of hard because I know most people, you know, I was lucky enough to be paid to go to school, but most people, they're not. And I wish I would have invested that money a little bit more. But the thing is, it helped me throughout where I am now to get to where I am for the most part. But invest while you can, while you're young. I would say that is a big thing. Invest while you're young. Try to find ways to build your credit. This will help you for when you graduate after school. Study at least 4 hours a week, man. You have to study. In high school, I didn't study as much, but I mean, I still made A's and B's, but in college, it's a totally different thing, man. You have to study at least a minimum of 4 weeks if you want to at least make a B average. I'm gonna tell you that much. Take care of your physical and mental health too. That's a big one right there, because college is very stressful at times. It has its moments, because one thing about college, you have to learn to manage real life issues on top of work. And the thing is, most professors, they are understanding, but at the same time, depending on the university you go to or the environment you're in, most of them will not. They will not understand, because I give you an example for where there was a time where when the power went out during the ice storm, and I was in school, and I had an exam, and the professor didn't cancel an exam, and we still had to, but my internet was out.
Wow.
So yeah, and my internet was down, and I had to find a way to at least to get the exam to, otherwise I wouldn't have passed. Luckily enough, he understood for the most part, even though he told me I wasn't gonna pass that exam, but I ended up actually passing the exam. But at first it didn't seem like he was understanding my perspective. But you have to kind of build a wall. You'll be okay. I promise you'll be okay once you make it through. You just talk to your professors. They really understand it for the most part. Like, build connections with them. Apply for scholarships. It's a lot of free money out there. A lot of what most people don't realize, it's more money than you could think of. Like, it's so many scholarships out there. Most people don't want to write essays, but most of the times you can use the same essay for a different scholarship, just change the wording.
Same
but
as
it is
It's just like using the same resume over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. It is way too much free money out there for you to not at least have one scholarship. A couple of things I say don't do. It's okay to party every now and then, but every day, no. If you're gonna go into civil engineering, don't skip a class. I'm telling you that now. Because one class is like, you skip one class and now you're suddenly 2 weeks behind. Like, it's a lot of coursework within them classes. And another thing I will say that you have to learn to do, when it comes to engineering in general, you have to learn to work in groups, because one thing about it, you're not gonna work by yourself. Sure, they'll give you different assignments, but everything you do, for example, for me, even in my job, everything that I do has to go to somebody else, or I have to proofread something else that somebody else has done, or I have to do some calculations for something with somebody else that they done. So you have to learn at some point to work in a group, especially when you go to school. Most of your projects, like major projects, like my design projects, most of them were in groups. I don't think I had a single project that were where I was working alone. So you have to learn to work to group, and that goes back to you learning to be, put yourself out there, be social.
Yeah,
Because
and I would even take it one step farther, Sam, to say that in college, you're not only gonna have to work in groups, you're gonna have to work with groups of people, of types of people you've never been around before.
yep,
Unfortunately, and even for me, I graduated Madison Central and you graduated Velma Jackson. When you get to college, you're gonna have people you have never been around before, and you got to learn to work with them. Even if they live a type of life you may not agree with. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's a business. So you got to learn to work as a team. And I always say you don't have to be buddies with them, but you got to be on the same team and be on the same page about all that stuff. And college is a great time to learn to do that.
yep. And one thing I do appreciate about that, it taught me a lot about people. Like, you will learn, even though you might not like the people on your team, sometimes you have to do what you can to get it done.
Absolutely.
Because it was a case where it was somebody that I worked with, and I wasn't necessarily close with the person, or I wasn't necessarily cool with the person, but I wasn't too personal with them, but I just knew that they could help me when I needed them. So it was a mutual relationship. So we help each other a lot. But like you said, you have to learn, it's a business. Like, you have to learn to work with people.
Yep.
And another big one is, don't miss assignments. What people don't realize is, yes, your tests, they count a lot, but the homework, it counts just as much, because 90% of your time, your exam really is going to be your exact same thing as your homework. Like, I know for a fact it's going to be your homework for the most part. So if you don't do the homework, you're not going to pass the class. And, just be a good student overall. Like, it's not as hard as, it's time management. That's something that you have to be big on, because especially when you become involved in a lot of organizations like I was, it's kind of hard at times, because sometimes you have to make trade-offs, you have to pick and choose what you want to sacrifice. But once you find a good balance, you'll be okay. And that was just like I mentioned, the internships and organizations. If you need any help with finding any of these, I can give you my number, and they can reach out to me, or I can give you my email at the end of the
Sure.
at the end of this. And that's all I have for you.
Well, that was awesome. Now, I do have a few, I do a few questions for myself before I get to some of the students' questions.
Okay.
But before you got to Jackson State, talk a little bit about your high school experience, because you played football, you were involved in a lot of things here, but you were still a good student. And yeah, obviously we all know high school is not as difficult as college. No, let's not tell that lie. But at the same time, you did a good job doing what you needed to do to take care of things, because like you said, you had the scholarships to be able to go to college. So even if somebody has no desire to do anything in engineering ever in their life, what can they do in high school like you did to still be involved in things, but yet still get that money for college? Because like you said, the money is there.
Prioritize your work, man. There's one of the biggest things. I don't care how time, even after practice, I know for a fact that it was a couple of days where I was just like, I don't want to get it done. It's not gonna get done. But I tell myself that, but I think about the consequence.
Yeah.
Like, I know the consequence gonna outweigh the pros, because I knew for a fact if I didn't do the homework, I probably was gonna fail the exam, or I probably was gonna fail that class. So that's one of the biggest things, man. You just have to want to do it also, because if you don't, it's really difficult. But like I said, think about the consequences, bro. You have to.
Yep.
You have to.
Now, and before I get to the students' questions, I also wanted to ask about your experience at Jackson State, because a lot of people, I hear a lot of both sides of it saying, I only want to go to an HBCU, or I don't want to go to an HBCU. So, if a young person watching now or watching later is interested in getting involved in engineering, And I think it's important to understand not only the strength of the Jackson State program, but also just because it has HBCU status doesn't mean it's, because I always say historically Black doesn't mean exclusively Black, because especially the engineering department there at Jackson State is extremely diverse.
It's really diverse. Yeah, like you said, like the program is really diverse. I really enjoyed my time at JSU for the most part. When it comes to the classes are really small. Like I think my largest class maybe had 30 people in there at the most. But at the same time, it's kind of like you can be closer with the professor. Like especially when it comes in engineering, you're gonna have a lot of questions. That's actually the point, because most of what you do in college is theoretical, and it's just application. And you're gonna have to ask a lot of questions because you're not gonna understand everything. And having that small class sizes, it made me feel seen. I really enjoyed, like, I have good bonds with my professors. Actually, a couple of them that I can still reach back out to. And when it comes to like an environment in general, it was really nice. Of course, you know, seeing your own kind, it felt really good to kind of be around people that's kind of like seeing people doing the same thing that I'm doing, like, especially with color. And like, you're not, sometimes when you struggle alone, you have your brother or sister there, you know, struggling with you. And you push each other. And that was something I really valued too, because we was pushing each other at the same time, even though we all was at sometimes struggling. And to have that kind of connection, I built like lifelong friends, a couple of people now, and you just never know who gonna be what once you leave. And that was something I really appreciated about the environment too.
That's awesome. Now I forgot, I did have one more I wanted to ask before I get to the students' questions. And I ask every guest the same thing because I just want kids to see how it really is. Because what I see a lot is they don't get it right the first time. Oh, this is too hard, I quit. How often does anybody in engineering get it right the first time?
Oh, none. You would never get it right the first time. I promise you won't. You think I can tell you from experience. One of the first class engineering class that I took, it was engineering mechanics 1. I thought I had everything packed, studied. I made a 60 my first test. A 60. Never made a D in my life till that class. You would never, I promise you would never get it right, especially with engineering. It's like I said, most of what you learn is theoretical, so it's kind of open for debate. It's kind of one of the things where it's like it's open for debate for the most part. It's different ways to do everything, so you're not gonna get it right the first time.
Yeah, and and it really is necessary, especially in civil engineering, because you talked about building the bridge and it was too heavy. You may have to change the materials. You may have a great design, but if the materials can't sustain the weather or the weight of what's going across the bridge, you've got to start over. That doesn't mean you have to change the entire thing, but there's a step you have to change. So I think that's important to realize as well. A lot of times students are like, oh, I got to start all over. Well, you really don't have to start all over. You just have to get back to where you were to that step and adjust from there. So I think that's important as well. It's not a daunting task. And you know, civil engineers do things that we depend on to live every day, and they have to do trial and error. Now, I do have some questions from the students. I'll get to as many details as I can.
Okay.
And this is a perfect segue. This is Brian McMurtry. He's a senior, and he asked, how accurate does your planning have to be before building starts on a project?
Okay, so when it comes to that, you have to be roughly, we do about percentages. I would say about 30% for the most part.
Wow.
You're not, yeah, because the thing is, you have planning for the most part, and then you have drafting. When you go into planning, you're taking consideration for the design of the project, but most importantly, you're taking in consideration for how much everything is going to cost.
Okay.
For the most part. So yeah, I'm gonna say roughly about 30% when you first start.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned budget too, because the financial aspect is also a big part that gets overlooked. This is Zalia Chesser. She's a junior, I'm sorry, and she asked, "What is the most fascinating part of engineering?"
Ooh. The most fascinating part for me is I really like the fact that we build a lot. Like structural wise, that's always been something that's really interesting to me, because you have to take in the account of physics for the most part, weight of material, and then you have to take in the fact for shape, design of material. So I always find that kind of cool, because, for example, go back to the bridge. I have never seen a bridge like that until then. That was really cool. And if you know how much it look, most people don't actually realize how large bridges are until you are upon them. Like, that bridge was like 60 feet in the air, and we had to climb across that bridge. That's one of the coolest things I ever experienced. So
That is pretty cool. I just got two more from the students. This first one is Layla Young, our senior, our Miss Velma Jackson, and she asked, when you were at Velma Jackson, did you ever think you would be majoring in engineering?
no, I did not. I thought I was going to go to school for to be a lawyer.
Wow.
Found my path to engineering through one of my friends. Kind of brought me on to Jackson State through a program called Summer Bridge. I don't know if they still offer anymore. And it allowed me to go in as a second semester sophomore my first year. So I was a second semester sophomore my freshman year.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that Summer Bridge, because PWIs offer that as well. And it really does a good job, especially if you're a first generation college student. They gear toward minority and first generation college students to get them used to the college experience. I know Jackson State has a great program in it. So does Southern Miss and Mississippi State. So that is a great program. I had no idea you did that, but it really gets you adjusted to that college life and can help you make college decisions like you did. And it seemed to work out really well for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of gives you a pre-taste of what college would be like for the most part, without the traffic of everything hitting you all at one time and kind of figuring it all at one time. So that was definitely a luxury, I would say, for real.
Yeah, and then even outside of engineering, it does a great job of getting you used to how things operate. Because even for me, coming from Madison Central, going to Southern Miss, it was a big adjustment for me. You know, even though I went to a big high school, nothing can prepare you for a big college. I just got one more, and this is Brenda Escudero. She's a senior, and she asked, "Do you really like where you are at in your life right now, or what more things do you want to accomplish?"
Yeah, I think I'm okay with where I'm at right now, but I think it's some things more that I would like to improve on. Some things that I'm looking forward to now. I'm working towards being a professional engineer, so I'm actually working on my certification now. That's probably one of the bigger things that I'm looking forward to going forward, and becoming more involved in the consulting side of things. I work in the private sector, which is, in my opinion, I prefer the private sector, because it's better in my opinion, because you get more hands-on training. You're more involved with projects. You get more input on projects. Whereas when you're working for the state, you don't get as much input, and there's not as much to do, really, honestly. Because I've worked in both. So
I've heard that from several people, so I'm glad that's not just one person sharing that opinion. So there's pros and cons to both, but if you're a big person that wants to be creative, I definitely agree that the private sector is the way to go.
it is.
Now, before we go, and we appreciate again so much you making some time for us, but with every Velma Jackson alum, I always ask, you were walking these same halls with these same teachers, sitting in these same chairs, but yet now you're in the big city, just on the cusp of even more success, and it's really cool to see what you're doing. So even if these kids don't want to be engineers, what can they do while they're at Velma Jackson to do some of the things you guys have done? Because obviously it's possible.
Man, number one, be kind to your teachers. I would say that, because you never know when you're gonna need them. Like, seriously, farther on down the line, you will never know who you're gonna need and when you're gonna need them. Study more, be involved. Just be a good kid, man. It's not hard. Just keep your heart in the right place, and you'll be okay. I promise you will. Keep your head on your shoulder straight. You'll be good.
We'd love to see it. Well, Sam, we thank you so much for joining us, and we are so proud to call you an alumni, and it's just amazing to see all the great things you're doing, and I know more is going to come. So next time you're in town, we'd love to have you come visit.
Oh, okay. I definitely will. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to start a mentorship program school for soon for high school students and college kids. One through my job, and then one kind of personally on my own that I'm doing. So I'll probably be reaching back out to you soon to get, talk, see how this goes. But yeah, just keep in mind. I should be there soon one day this year.
That's awesome. Well, one of the best students to ever come through Velma Jackson High School, at least in my tenure, class of 2018, Samuel Smith from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. You have a good one, man.
Talk to you soon, my man.
All right.